Hello to all you in YouTube world willing to listen to this video. My name is Scarlett, and I am an atheist and skeptic in progress. I like to contemplate matters of life and philosophy, especially what gives us meaning and purpose. Today, I want to focus on what I'm thinking of as oddities in the Bible, of which there are many, and I hope I'm bringing some fresh items to the table. Not just the talking snakes and birds as bats, but some things I've never heard anyone mention. I was always taught that humans wrote the Bible. It was God-inspired, but not God-written, and I was taught to take a lot of it allegorically. Even the historical parts I was taught to treat as exaggerated, a human-centric take on events. As a child growing up Catholic in the South, I was told it was the good book, but I thought of it as the boring book. I didn't give that much thought to some sections, but as an adult with a more agnostic and atheistic perspective, some oddities really jump out. How can this be the product of some superior being with a plan? Anyone who thinks the book is literal must not have grappled with it, I think. In this video, I would like to look at Genesis 2, the first part of Adam and Eve, and starting at verse 7, where God creates Adam. I'm looking at the New International Version, by the way. So verse 7 reads, "Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." All right, cool. So God made man from dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils. As you can hear from others, Aaron Ra notably, this is a golem spell. But I'm less interested in that than the notion that the first man is formed from dust. Why do creationists get upset at being descended from monkeys? Arguably, it is worse to come from dust. Going on, we see that God is like a child playing with his toys. He has a garden in Eden, and he puts his little man there. There are all kinds of pleasing trees. It says, "And now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." All right, cool. This is nice. Here we have our conflict set up. We have the famous tree of life, the famous tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is good writing. We have it all set up. We know what is going to be the problem. Cool. Then in verse 10, there is a recounting of rivers. Let's read this. "A river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. The name of the first is the Pishon. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Aromatic resin and onyx are also there. The name of the second river is the Gihon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris. It runs along the east side of Ashur. And the fourth river is the Euphrates." I just want to point out that the man does not have a name yet, and Eve won't have a name until Genesis 3. Genesis 5 is the boring genealogy getting us to the time of Noah, and we will not hear the name of one woman in all of that. And as the Bible continues, there will be countless unnamed women, but we get the name of all these rivers with detailed descriptions. The rivers are not part of the conflict. There is literally no importance to them, nor to the land of Cush. It's all superfluous detail, but they all get names, and the descriptions are just odd too. And by the end, it seems like the writer got tired. We just have the name Euphrates. That's all the detail. Anyway, this is just odd, this whole recounting of rivers. It's strange to have this here. Like, what's the point? So verses 15 through 17 is God asking Adam to take care of the garden and not eat from the tree, etc. All good, all good. The writer is setting us up for the conflict. Then we get to verse 18 through 20 when God is all like, "Yo, my little toy man is alone and it's not good." Is this the same God that has a plan for us all? Did he not have a plan for the first man? It's just really odd. I get the impression God was tired of his toy and wanted to do other stuff, like a parent who needs a break from parent duty and organizes a play date. But the next stretch is odd too, and I'm not the first to note that God parades all these animals in front of Adam and notices in verse 20, but for Adam, no suitable helper was found. Like, no shit? And again, I'm thinking of creationists who are upset that we came from monkeys, but here it is in your book, in the second chapter of the first book, with God wondering if maybe another animal will be Adam's helper. I'm just saying, I don't think God sees them as very different, is all. Next, we have the famous creation of Eve from Adam's rib. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. Why is woman made from man's rib? Why didn't God form her out of dust like Adam? I get that women are inferior because Adam was first and Eve was made from him, but this is just odd for an all-powerful being. Frankly, I do wonder, what was the purpose of making Adam a man if there is no woman? And, I get that this was written by men to try to justify their superiority, etc., and of course they're the center, but I just find this whole section odd. There's nothing that's not odd about this story. Anyway, moving on, verse 23. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh." How does that follow? Because God took a piece of Adam and created a whole new being, he leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife? It seems to me that God just created two separate beings. Two separate beings. They're not one flesh anymore. And why does creating one being out of another necessitate leaving your parents? People read this and talk about God's plan for marriage, but none of this makes sense. And God didn't say any of this even in this book. Adam says a few things, gets to name woman, and the writer says, yeah, so this is why man leaves his parents and his wife become one flesh. They are still two people. How does that make sense that they are one? The chapter ends with verse 25. Adam and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. Well, yeah, they wouldn't. Why would they feel shame? This presumes that being naked is shameful. Is it? Why would it be? With only two humans, what is shameful about it? One final bit of oddness in Genesis 2. There is this sexless, desireless quality to Eve's creation. I guess we're meant to presume that Adam is horny and God recognizes his need for an outlet for his sexual urges. But it's definitely not framed that way. He just needs a helper, like help working the garden, and that would be easier with somebody else. But let's return to how this shows God's plan for marriage. Just ignoring all those parts of the Old Testament where men have sex with handmaids and they have concubines and sex slaves. What is the marriage part here? We have two humans, one man and one woman, and we're just told they're man and wife with no ceremony or whatever. How does it follow that because God made one woman out of the first man, they are married? What does marriage even mean in this context? Marriage is not unique to Judaism or Christianity. It has existed across the world as a way to keep property together. Here, what is the point? There are only two beings in existence. In the end, Genesis 2 reminds me of an undergraduate essay, one that is at its first draft with no proofreading. And the student got a little attached to some sections, like all that river naming bit, and they didn't want to cut it because they liked it. And they forgot to connect some dots in their reasoning. In short, it's not just that it's not the work of some omniscient deity with a plan. It's not the work of an okay writer with a plan. Genesis 2 is just an assemblage of fragments for Christians to plaster with whatever thoughts they want. I have been Scarlett, giving my life meaning and purpose by making this video. I hope you liked it, and if you did, you can, YouTube like it by hitting the like button and all that other stuff. You're on YouTube, you know the drill. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.